Good morning and God's peace to you all.
Good morning.
It's great to have all of you here this morning. We're still on the fourth commandment. I would like to turn your attention to the last portion of the fourth commandment, if I may. Number 51. It's on page 76. Page 76. And it's taken from Ephesians chapter 6, verse 3. That it may go well with you, and that you may be long in the land. Now, some have translated it, that it may go well with thee, that thou mayest live long on the earth, and so forth and so on. The truth of the matter is, it's the one commandment that comes with a promise. And I want to talk about that, if I may. One of the issues that we have today is, well, let's take teachers and students. Okay, teachers and students. One of the issues that we have facing our children and our teachers in school today is that teachers don't really have much authority over the children. Now, some have said that this is the reason and that's the reason and so forth and so on. But I can tell you that my experience in Guilford County school system is, in the public common school, is that you spend, I would say, 85 to 90% of your time reining in the terrors that are our children, and only about 10% is actual learning. It's no wonder that our teachers are really having a lot of difficulty teaching. However, let us be also aware of the fact that, as many of you know, recently we've had a lot of teachers who have taken advantage of the students. You know what I'm talking about? Okay. Which is quite frankly a perversion of the fourth commandment, because they are entrusted with the well-being of the students, so abuse is taking place. It's sort of like the Catholic priest that abused the altar boys and so forth and so on. What happens if all authority in the, let's just say the country, goes down the tubes?
Chaos.
Complete chaos. At worst, it's anarchy, and at best, it's chaos, which is
Well, one leads to the other.
yeah. And what we have today is a real broken system in which authority is no longer seen as authority, and authority is also misused. So what we're having in this country is something that I experienced back years ago, which is basically chaos. Anything goes. What is the authority of our country? What is the ultimate authority in our country, supposedly? The Constitution of the United States. We are having a constitutional crisis like every other day now. It's incredible. And I want to leave it at that, simply to say that the balance of power, the judiciary, the executive branch, and the Congress have distorted that power, and now the FBI is involved, and so forth and so on. You cannot have a country, folks, unless everybody's on the same page, or at least somewhat on the same page. We have executive branches that are by fiat doing certain things. We have the Congress that are doing certain things that shouldn't be done, and the judiciary as well. Plus, we have elements of the government that kind of go off on their own too. This, folks, is a very dangerous thing. I don't know if you realize that or you are coming to terms with that, but this is in fact a very dangerous thing. Now, after saying that, the authority that God gives our leaders and our people in authority, our parents, our people that even our employees, employers have authority over us. Okay, what has the ultimate authority in the church? What gives the ultimate authority in the church? Well, yes, but Christ speaks to us through the Word. So if it's in the Word, sola scriptura, it is the only, as the confessions say, it is the only source and norm of practice and of belief and of doctrine in the church. What happens, folks, if that then is broken down like the Constitution? What happens?
You don't have a church.
You don't have a church. You don't. It's a very dangerous thing. And one of the things that's happening is now I'm going to use a fancy word here. Okay, just bear with me. It's called hermeneutics. Hermeneutics is the study of how you interpret, if you will, scriptures. But hermeneutics also applies to that which is the Constitution. One of the problems that you have in the church is if the church doesn't follow the scriptures as the only practice and norm of what happens in the church, and you have entire denominations that are basically in a state of chaos because nobody really knows what the scripture says. Now, chaos is very detrimental to our livelihood, our living in society. In the church, if we lose sight of scriptures as the final source and norm of all practice and theology and doctrine, and if we lose sight of the Constitution, you have chaos, you have darkness, you have a stampede of people. This has broken down in our society. At the core of what's really happening in our society is nobody knows the limits as to what they can do or what they can't do because there are no limits. And there are no limits because we no longer look to the Constitution in the kingdom of the left or in the kingdom of the right in the church. We no longer look at, if you will, the source and norm of all scriptures. Any reactions to this? Can you see this in society?
Yeah, it's visible every day.
Yeah.
You know, when I was a boy and I did something wrong, I got corrected.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I disobeyed my grandfather. He gave me extra work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. My mother, she wasn't that kind.
Yeah.
But there, today, parents are afraid of their children.
Well, and see, if the parents no longer are parenting the way they should or need to train and teach their children the way of the world, you know, one of the things is, the sad thing about children today is a lot of our parents almost see no difference between a pet and a child. And this, folks, let me tell you something.
And a lot of people think more of the pet than they do the children.
No, but that's been a study done on that. There's been a study done on that where pets are almost more welcomed and more appreciated than human beings, which is absurd as well.
Well, I've got to say, and I use it all the time, the more I know about people, the better I like the person.
Well, yeah, And there's a reason for that, because people, I made a phone call, what was it, Friday or Thursday. It had to do with the VA. Anyway, I called the VA. The VA told me to call this one, and I called that one. I mean, she was downright rude. I mean, just downright rude. I mean, when you're a veteran, you're worthless. You're in the VA system. You have to listen to me.
Well, that happens as you get age. If you talk to the doctor's office, they don't care about you after you reach a certain age.
But see, this is I don't know the answer to this, and I can tell you that I went to one doctor once, and he told me I was a liar, right to my face. Oh yeah. I walked out and I lodged a complaint. But you know what? You can't sue a doctor for just saying that. You can't sue him. If I could, I think I would have at that point. But anyway, the point is that we have, all of society is built on the premise that there has to have authority. And that authority now is based on, in the kingdom, and I use the kingdom of the left, but the kingdom of power. It's referred to as the kingdom of the left, and I don't want to confuse the left and the right. The kingdom of power, that is the civil government. And that, we in the United States of America believe that the Constitution is, if you will, the final arbitrator of what is true and what is authority. In the church, again, we have the scriptures. One of the problems is, if you look at parents, the family has broken down, so there's no longer, if you will, a father, and there's no longer a mother. There's sometimes something other than that arrangement. And that is, in of itself, a breakdown. The other thing is, you know, you talked about pets. I love my Marty. You know I do. But Marty is a dog. And he's not too brilliant either, I might add. But he is not a child in the sense, I might hug him, and he might give me incredible amounts of joy. But if I had a child, it would be completely different than the way I handle my dog. My dog's job is basically not to do it in the house, not to poop or pee in the house, and not to bite anybody, all right? He lost sight of the whole barking thing, as you all are aware of. But he barks, but he doesn't bite. But people don't know that, and that maybe is not a bad thing. The problem that we face here in the West, and when I mean the West, I mean Europe, Australia, United States, Canada, there is no authority anymore. There's no authority. It's whatever goes. And this will not go well with us. You see, that was my point. That's my.
There's going to be a price to be paid.
Yes, somewhere down the road, it's going to come to a head. All right, it's going to come to a head, and there'll be a price to pay. Our Lord says through the Ten Commandments that all authority has been placed in the parents, and the parents then give authority to the teacher, and the parents give authority to the pastor, to the president, to the Congress, to the doctor, you know. But if this is broken down, then it will not go well. And ultimately, folks, that's what's happening. If you really want to know what's happening, and then if you also want to look exactly what's happening, is we're going back in time, pre-fall, pre-Garden of Eden, where there was, what was it, in Genesis, there's chaos, there's water, no, there's not water, there's just darkness. And that was void, remember? And God took the void and separated the void, and he called one ocean, or sea and one earth, and he took that chaos out of the world and he made order. We are doing just the opposite. And so let me what do you all think about this? Yes.
I think it's always been that way since Adam and Eve fell. I think it's always been that way.
This particular,
I think one of the things we notice is because there are so many more people, it's just like if you put a drop of red food coloring into a great big basin of water, it gets a little red throughout the whole thing. But as you put more in, it just, because there's more people in the same space, and there's such vast ability to communicate ideas, it seems worse, but it's the same flaw that was there from the beginning. And we can talk about, I need to say this, we can talk about a particular, it never comes up in the newspaper that I'll make it up, that some teacher did something wonderful for a student. But if some teacher has sex with a student, man, you got that in the paper like nothing. And it seems like that's teachers, and it's not. But all the things that you're speaking about are true, but it's so hard to keep everything in a perspective. That doesn't lessen our responsibility to respond.
Look, let me respond to that, to you, Marianne. True that authority has always been questioned.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do believe, though, that there is a quantitative and qualitative difference today. And I'm going to tell you why. Listen to what I'm going to say now. I think we have other issues that history has dealt with. And there is sin, and sin is always in the world. However, this particular sin, the sin against authority, I believe is prevalent. And I'm going to give you an example. When I was a young man, which was not too long ago, right? Okay.
You're still a young man.
Yeah, compared to the rest of us.
Compared to all you guys, when I was a young man, when I was in grade school, we would literally march. We would march, and we never said a word. Okay? When I was subbing, and when I saw the kids in the class, it wasn't just because I was a sub, I wasn't the only class. The kids are out of line, they're beating on one another, they don't follow directions, they don't. So what would otherwise take maybe 5 minutes to go from the lunchroom to the back to the classroom or so forth and so on, now takes 15, 20 minutes at the best. That is a prime example of where authority is broken down.
Why do you think they haven't put police in the schools?
I'm sorry?
The reason they put police in the schools wasn't just to keep the bad people out.
Yeah.
To keep the ones in there in line.
And see, one of the things that I knew, that I saw 30 years ago, I went to summer school in Theodore Roosevelt, which is right on the cusp of the South Bronx. Across the street from Fordham University, there's a White Castle's there too. Anyway, when you walked into Theodore Roosevelt, you had metal detectors, you had police officers that were doing searches because the drugs were coming in and out. You had weapon searches and so forth and so on. Now what are you beginning to see? You are beginning to see that in every school. Give or take, you know, all right? Now we call them resource officers. My point is that to respond to what you're saying, Mary Ann, and I understand what you're saying. We've always had murder. We've always had adultery. We've always had stealing. We've always had lying, you know, all of that stuff, of course. But I do believe that the fourth commandment, in particular, authority, I see it's prevalent and it's quantitatively increased and it's qualitatively increased to the point where nobody really wants to take authority. Only those people who want authority are the ones that want power. There's not a give and take of respect and authority. Now, I don't know, there are many that believe as you do, Mary Ann, and I don't believe that. I believe that there is a qualitative, quantitative difference, that our country and particularly our culture, the West, is finding more and more times where authority has broken down, and it has broken down beginning with the mother and father, the family. And I've said this before and I'll say it again. Nothing against the President of the United States. You know, he wants to make America great, that's fine. He might do it this way, he might do it that way. But if there is no family, if we do not re-energize the family, keep things in line and have children that are trained and taught what is right or wrong, what is truth and falsity, we are going to have a lot of problems.
Well, you see it.
Well, I wanted to say something. I'm sorry, Mark.
I think one of the main problems is, it goes back to the old saying, you spare the rod, you got to spoil the child. It's a breakdown of discipline. That's one of the main problems.
Well, the problem with that is, hello, how are you all?
Good.
From whence you come from?
Texas.
Texas. Well, good.
Wow.
Well, that's-
all right.
That's good.
Yeah.
Not today.
Is it warmer in Texas?
A little.
What are your all names now?
I'm Sean. This is Sean Jr.
And I'm Crystal.
Crystal? Oh, okay, well, great. Great. We're going over our catechism. So that's, right now we're discussing whether there is, we have one person on the floor, and I mean that. Oh, okay.
Because I agree with what you're saying.
Oh, okay.
I agree with a lot of things that you're saying. I don't agree with your analogies I don't agree that specific cases speak to I mean, basically, what we're saying is, we're away from the Word of God. And when you get away from the Word of God, things happen. And the family breaks down is one thing that happens. Authority breaks down. Getting away from saying that God is the absolute truth. That's ultimate. Then these other things are symptoms of what is happening. It's just like if somebody has a disease, you need to get to the root of it, but they might have a fever, they might have aches, they might have pain, they might be coughing, they might have high blood pressure, but all those things are symptoms of what the root is. That's what I'm saying. And I'm saying the root cause has always been there since the sin, since the separation of God. in the Garden of Eden, that's sin.
Oh, I wouldn't argue that
All the
point.
other things are symptoms.
But one has to say, let me give you one example. The fifth commandment, thou shalt not murder, right? Well, there's always been murder since, Cain and Abel, right? Always been murder since Cain and Abel, and it always will be murder. But the Holocaust makes it an art form. You know what I'm saying? The Nazi regime.
So it's kind of like this. It's like this. Lord, I am really good. I deserve to go in your heaven because I haven't done anything bad.
But you sin in thought,
But guess what?
word, and deed.
I'm so good. But that one little thing that I can't do, the one little imperfection that I have, which is a lie, of course, I have many imperfections. But in other words, you measure things that all you need to say is, it missed the mark.
And it only takes one.
And it only takes one. And so the Holocaust is just so much big time.
Well, and that's the point I'm trying to make, that the fourth commandment, God says that it's the only commandment with a promise that it may go well with thee. If authority has broken down in our society, which I believe it has, and it has broken down immensely, profoundly, deeply, that you can, it will not go well with us. It will not go well with us. It hasn't. It will continue not to go well with us. So, are we done? We're done.
Judy wants to say something.
Oh, I'm sorry, Judy.
No.
No? You sure?
I just put my hand in.
Oh, no, go ahead.
No, I'm fine.
You sure? Okay. Positive. All right. Well, let's bow our heads and say the Lord's Prayer together. Thank you. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power,